Hello YouTube, I'm Pilot Stud and welcome to a review that I'm very excited about. Today, a few hours ago, the DC Designs F15 package was released for Microsoft Flight Simulator. First of all, let me say, if you want to purchase this aircraft, it's available with the link in the description, coming in at a very generous £27. Now in this package you get the F15C, D, E and 1 Eagle variant, with 8 liveries. But before we get into this review, I'd like to say a massive thank you to Just Flight for giving me a press copy to try out. But as always, this review comprises of my own thoughts, so there's no bias here. Let's hop into this review. Okay, so right now I'm here at Lakenheath, a US Air Force base here in the United Kingdom. You may be wondering, why is there a United States Air Force base in the United Kingdom? One word, politics, that's all you need to know. Now the variant we'll be taking for a little flight is this beautiful F15C Eagle from the 493rd Fighter Squadron based here at Lakenheath Air Force Base. I've spawned in on the runway. There is a manual that helps you start up the aircraft if you really want to, but as this has been out for a few hours, I haven't really had the chance to set it up properly, although most of the buttons and switches do work, so that is possible. Now one thing I should point out is that if you want study level aircraft in a completely combat environment, then go over to DCS. It's a much better experience for any military flight simmer. However, this is certainly a fun aircraft, let me get that off the bat now. I think how today's video is going to go is we're going to do a nice circuit here at Lakenheath just to get a feel for the flight dynamics. I've already done a few flights, and then we'll probably go down to the Mach loop in Wales. Now the first issue I've noticed, although it's not big, it just takes a bit of patience, is that one of your engines won't be started up, and therefore if you apply full throttle afterwards, then there is an issue. You will of course bank to the left or right depending on what one isn't starting up. From my testing so far, it appears the right one starts up first, and then momentarily after that, about 1 or 2 minutes, the left one will kick in. Let's hop into the cockpit and take off now. Now of course with all fighter jets, it's got an incredibly fast acceleration rate. You can pull off the ground fairly quickly, and as long as you're gentle with the aircraft, it is wonderful to fly. Now once we get our gear up, we can be ready to pull off a vertical climb. Yeah, we've got ATC talking. Look at this, guys. But before we flip, let's get back in the cockpit. We can continue this climb for a while. And let's bring our nose down. We'll reduce some power. Look out the windows. I mean, look at that, guys. That is beautiful. That is truly remarkable. Now, the aircraft flight model is immaculate. Although I've, of course, got no experience with the F15 in any way, shape or form. Although I have actually had the privilege to visit Lakenheath before with the RAF cadet. So I've actually sat in this type of aircraft before. If I've got a picture, I'll put it on the screen now. So I'm not overly qualified to talk about the flight model, but speaking from a flight simulation point of view, it feels pretty realistic. Let's get through these clouds now, and then we'll take a look at the cockpit textures. Okay, so pulling out above the clouds now, you can really get a sense of the beauty of this aircraft. Looking outside, my goodness, does that look good. I mean, just look at that. It looks fantastic. Feels right at home here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Although I don't recommend flying like this because it really deorientates you. It's quite difficult to fly, but just let's get that in the sun. Look at that. That's great. The detail on this aircraft is marvellous. I'm not too sure if it's 4K textures. I don't believe it is just yet, but I know they're planning on it. Look at that. Amazing. Now, I kind of think DC Designs have gone down the route of making this a fun aircraft to fly, as opposed to a true study level aircraft. However, as you can see, most of these switches and dials work. This is the place where you're going to be most often. You can see you've got your transponder up here, you've got your fuel controls up here, you've got your lights down here, and everything seems to work. Cockpit resolution is pretty good, although it could be improved in some places, especially when you look closer to the rudder pedals. I don't know, it just appears payware companies can't do rudder pedals at the moment. They just don't look very good. Not all buttons work, I should say, and if you're really into your study level aircraft, then it may not be the aircraft for you, but just bear in mind that this aircraft comes in at a cool £27. just below the cloud ceiling right now, guys. What do you think? Tell me in the comment section down below. We'll take a look at more of the features in a minute, but so far first impressions are very good. I think it's certainly worth its money. I'm certainly excited to try this out in virtual reality. It flies like a dream, and because you're quite enclosed in this cockpit, all the buttons are basically visible. It's going to be pretty fun to fly around when you're in VR. I've actually got a VR headset. I've got an Oculus Rift S now, so I'll be testing that out later. Now in this version we've got plenty of analog instruments, but if we swap over to the F15E Strike Eagle, my favourite variant, then you can see we get quite a few more digital displays with our navigation display, and we've also got engine parameters up there as well. The F15E is of course the 2-seat variant, the slightly larger aircraft I believe, and my goodness, I have to say this is my favourite one. There is other variants, but I don't want to reveal too much on this review. The only problem I can figure out with this variant compared to the others is that the lighting can be slightly off sometimes. You can see one of the navigation lights right there is green, and it's of course off the aircraft. Now I imagine that's because the lighting model has been transferred across the different models and therefore they haven't changed it over. However, I should point out this is its first day of release, so there's going to be bugs and problems expected. DC Designs are renowned for their quality aircraft, so if you guys experience any bugs or glitches, tell them and they'll get it sorted in the upcoming weeks and months. Performance wise is very good, I have to say. There's no problems with it so far. I do experience some loading in stutters, but that's just Microsoft Flight Simulator for you. I can't exactly do too much about that. The heads-up display is brilliant. We haven't got too many aircraft with true heads-up displays yet, so I'm very impressed with that one. Let's just get ourselves out of the cloud ceiling now. Beautiful. I mean, it is simply a perfect aircraft to go intercept some other aircraft, do some formation flying in. Or if you're quite a military nut, then this is the aircraft for you, I have to say. We're flying over two old USAF bases right now, RAF Woodbridge and RAF Bentwaters. Okay, so we're now on final approach towards RAF Lakenheath again. I had to abandon my landing at Woodbridge because the runway isn't actually there in this sim properly. Now one thing I have noticed is with the heads-up display, it appears to be doubled, which does make it look a bit odd at times. However, not every aircraft experiences it from my testing, and it would appear it is kind of like on and off. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Now the heads-up display is a selling point for this aircraft, and when it works correctly it is wonderful, seeing as it's all custom. We're coming in a bit quick here at RAF Lakenheath. Fighter jets are never too easy to land for me, so I do apologise. I'm of course reviewing this aircraft. I'm not a professional F15 pilot, and I don't think many people would expect me to be. Well, hey! One thing I should point out, as I've already said, is that rudder sensitivity is a big deal. I've had to turn mine down and it's still not perfect. Maybe it's something for the devs to sort out, because I've put my sensitivity to like -50% and it's still quite difficult to turn without banking the aircraft. Just taxiing to a ramp now so I can open up the canopy and talk about my thoughts so far, and then we'll go over to the Mach loop just for some nice flying really. On the ground it is a pleasure to taxi around, does a really good job just lining up with the line now. And in the air it does a fantastic job as well. It appears the flight model is a bit flawed on takeoff and landing. I'm not too sure what it is, maybe it's just because I'm not used to fighter jets, although it does feel quite sensitive. Maybe some settings need turned down a bit, just to make it a bit easier to land. On the ground it looks simply amazing. I mean, how could you not love this? The textures on the aircraft are immaculate, especially when you get closer to those engines. I mean, they do look superb. Putting those flaps up now. Opening up the canopy, you can look, wow, that opens up very well. There's no guttery issues with it. It does look very natural and perfect, to say the least. The aircraft from the outside looks great, as I've already said. Flying it around, it's certainly a joy to fly. Only issue so far is when you load up, one engine doesn't start up, you've got to wait a bit, and of course the sensitivity issues, although I imagine they'll be fixed over time. Taking a look at the control surfaces, they move very well and are very responsive to my control inputs. It's of course a brand new aircraft model in Microsoft Flight Simulator, so everything has been remodelled. It really does pay off. Extending those flaps, you can hear the beautiful sounds. You can extend them all the way down like that. I don't really know what else there is to say. We're going to take it for a flight in the Mach loop, and then I'm going to weigh up my pros and cons. Another nice feature is the moving pilot in the front there. Let's go to the world famous Mach loop now. Okay, so we're now here at RAF Valley, ready to take off to head towards the Mach loop. I think that's the engine that doesn't start up originally now starting up, so maybe if you hear that at the start, that's probably why, but I'm not too sure. You can see that our heads-up display bug has been solved from when we were landing, so as I said, it really is just hit and miss. I'm not too sure what that's about, but remember that this aircraft has just been released within the last few hours, so it's not going to be perfect, and the team DC Designs are of course renowned for their quality products, so we should see bugs like this fixed in the future very quickly, I'd imagine. I was surprised to find out that the F15 Strike Eagle, or the F15E, was first actually flew almost 50 years ago, 1972. Shocked me personally, but I'm sure most of you military guys out there would know that. We're now going to take off and head towards the Mach loop. I'm very impressed with this aircraft so far. There's a very good manual that comes along with it as well. You can find it in the Content ID folder, which is of course in the aircraft folder. Pulling out of RAF Valley, you really get a feel for the aircraft's potential. Departing from RAF Valley just before we turn left toward the Mach loop, you really get a good look at this aircraft. It looks amazing in this lighting, I have to say. And I'm going to turn left and head towards the Mach loop. I'll see you there. Okay, so we're now coming close to the area near the Mach loop, basically just over this river and in between those mountains over there, or hills, whatever you like to call them. We're not of course going to reach supersonic today because Microsoft Flight Simulator doesn't really work like that, but look, here we go. This is true flying. There we go, we're coming over it now. I mean, look at that, that looks great. Oh, this is so much fun. Here we go. Awesome place to get your screenshots, guys, really is. Continue over the river, or lake, whatever you like to call it. There we go, we're coming out of the Mach loop now, and we'll head towards the sea. Let's go do another run. We'll get a bit lower. Let's get as low as we can. Sound is remarkable, really. Sound is great. Awesome, coming back up the loop. Okay, pulling out of the Mach loop now, returning back to RAF Valley. We're going to go try and properly land this time, better than our landing at Lakenheath earlier, and then I'll go through some of the pros and cons of this aircraft, and I'll leave you to weigh up whether or not it's worth it. In my opinion, yes, it's amazing. Okay, welcome back to RAF Valley. You can see on the ground, after landing, sensitivity is a problem, even when you put my rudder pedals on minus 100% sensitivity. I think I've got them on. I'm not too sure whether that's because I'm used to airliners or there's a sensitivity issue with this aircraft. Now, one thing I'll pick up on is there is occasional lag spikes. It would appear more so with this aircraft than in the default Microsoft Flight Simulator game. My PC is pretty capable, so I'm not too sure why we've got that. It seems to be an issue with the F15. However, that landing was certainly better than the last one, and I had great fun going through the Mach loop. Let's park up now and go through the pros and cons before I end this video. Okay, so I have to say this aircraft is, straight off the bat, very fun to fly. We didn't have a proper fighter jet in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We had a training aircraft, but this is a proper military nut aircraft, and I have to say I love it. It will take a bit of getting used to from the airliners, which is probably where the sensitivity lies, but all in all it is a very fun aircraft to fly. For £27 you certainly get great value of money with many variants of aircraft, each with their own liveries. They're all very different aircraft as well, with different cockpits, different performance rates, and everything in between. I mean, it is amazing. Wherever you live in the world, you've got an air force nearby that flies the F15. They're one of the most popular military jets in production. I think the F16 just about beats it. But all in all, it's a great aircraft to fly. Negatives of it, however, do exist. It's of course not perfect. Number one, performance spikes. They do worry me a bit. You might have saw it as we were coming into RAF Valley. They are quite distracting. Number two is that some of the resolution in the cockpit isn't perfect, and that could be worked on. And finally, sensitivity issues with the yaw and of course taxiing is a major problem. I think the issue lies with the flight model there. It is a bit loose in places. However, DC Designs have promised to work on it, so therefore I truly believe most of these issues will be fixed. It's not 100%, but it's very close. Feel free to buy it. It's in the link down below on the Just Flight website. DC Designs, you've done an amazing job. I am rather impressed. I think the sounds need to be commended. They are absolutely amazing. Very good dynamic sound. That is a very strong selling point of this aircraft. I'm going to give it a rating of 8.5 out of 10. Quite high up there. It's certainly worth it for £27. I'm going to wrap up this video here, guys. I hope you've really enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. It's probably turned out to be quite a long one because there's lots to talk about. It's a fantastic payware aircraft. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe if you haven't done already. But from me today, that is all. Bye bye.